you said your mother had two home births.
Mhm.
What was her reaction when all this went down?
So she told me though, so she had a midwife, but she was also under the care of a medical doctor, of an OB. She said she had some appointments with an OB. So I thought that was interesting because it's like one or the other. These people have their own practices, but I don't know in the 80s, early, I don't know how it was, but she said she saw um, an OB a few times throughout her pregnancy. Um, but she was really saddened by the whole thing. Like it hit her pretty hard because I think she felt guilty also, um, knowing that I had a home birth because my mom had a home birth, and I thought I could do it too. But she was also, while I was pregnant, she's like, that they redid the hospital. She was very um, not like, oh, you need to have a home birth or something like that's the only thing. She's like, they redid the hospital. It's very nice. She was also advocating for, going to the hospital if I needed to, which I was fine with that. But she wasn't actually at the birth, so to she wasn't there assisting, or she wasn't there until
Oh,
after.
that's okay. I
Yeah.
mean, the home births where everybody and their brother shows up always strikes me as a bit.
So
Everyone
weird.
has the
And
right
having
to.
their
It is like not something I would do.
and having their kids all like there, and like, no, that's just
It's too
weird.
much.
Yeah, too
It's
much.
weird.
I'm not one of those people. So, you know, but when I think about it though, I kind of maybe wish she was there, because she would have been like, you've been birthing a really long time. This
Yeah.
is not right. She had 3 kids. This is not right. It's time to, she would have been that one to be like, it's time to go to the hospital, like,
Yeah,
this is,
there's been some, at least one home birth I can remember where basically um, the baby was saved by virtue of the parents of the family, birthing family being there.
wow. Yeah. Because having somebody who's been experienced and knows and sees it from, because when you're in labor and
Oh
you're
gosh,
in
yeah.
it, you're not like necessarily thinking clearly. And, you're just like, you're like in a time warp of what is happening. Everything feels like slow motion or feels like this. So having somebody on the outside looking in, being like, okay, even my friend who was there, she's like questioning, this is taking a very long time. Don't you think that this is like, she had a son, she had considered a home birth. She didn't go with it. Her husband was not on board with it. So she ended up going in the hospital, and she ended up having to have an emergency C-section while in the hospital. She birthed for a long time, and they were like, okay, we need to get this baby out. So she had, a C-section, she had a baby, and she was questioning these midwives, like, this is seems like, you know, something doesn't feel right. And, oh no, it's okay. First time mom, da da da. And there was no sense of urgency or sense of like over caution for anything. It was just like, let it take its course. But, everybody felt on edge that there was something not right. So even from the beginning, but,
When the lay people are the people who are doing a better job of being aware. I mean, I've seen it more than once in birth stories where people are questioning and then the midwives are dismissive. They don't even give proper answers either. They say, well, like you said, oh, she's a first time mom. That's why. Oh, it's normal. Don't worry. There should be more to it than that.
Did your mom tell you about your birth story, like of how you got stuck after you had your baby or before?
So I did know that I was stuck. Yeah, it was like, she had contractions. It was going pretty fast. And then I came out, but then like my head was out, but my shoulders were stuck. So she had to wait. So I didn't know that, but I didn't really know much about shoulder dystocia. I didn't look into it. I heard it once during the birthing classes. My mom didn't mention shoulder dystocia as like a diagnosis. So we didn't necessarily know. I just thought, okay, well, I was there. The midwife came and pulled me out. I didn't correlate it until after that it was you know, the same thing. And I think it can be genetic, shoulder dystocia, and it can happen multiple times in pregnancies. You know, if you had it once, you're likely to have it again too. So, but yeah, I did know my birth story, but it didn't seem like that big of a deal. So it didn't correlate that, you know, that was until I got a diagnosis from the doctor when we were in the hospital getting repaired that, oh yes, your daughter had shoulder dystocia. And then I'm like, okay, well, I was stuck too, you know, and mine was easier. I was my mom's third kid. So it seemed like it was a little bit faster, a little bit easier, and a different pregnancy or a different labor and delivery than, you know, mine was very long and took a very long time. And, you know, I felt like I was pushing forever. My mom didn't really push very much, and it wasn't a big deal for her. So didn't really like seem like a big deal. Like it wasn't traumatic or anything for my mom. So I guess that's kind of the difference. But yeah, I did know that I was stuck in a way, but it wasn't like she didn't say anything like it was a bad thing, you know? So
Yeah.
I didn't think about it.
I asked that because my mom, I knew my birth story from my mom. I'm the oldest. And so I knew my mom was overdue. I knew like very minimal of what happened. And then it wasn't until after my son, like years after, by the way, recently, that I asked my mom what happened. But my mom kept asking about when I said the word meconium. My mom was like, why does that word seem familiar, but I don't understand it? My mom had to look it up. And then she understood that for me, I was overdue. There was meconium, and they did have to take meconium out of my body. But my mom didn't know that. And so it's kind of like what our mothers didn't know, but it kind of was like, it's no big deal. Like that's kind of how it was treated. Like it's no big deal. So when we go off to have our kids, we didn't know there is dangers that had happened even with us being born could have happened a whole nother direction, just like our children. And so it's like, you know, and I don't blame our moms because our moms really just didn't know. They probably didn't know the technical terms. They didn't know when things are fine and you have your baby and everything's good. You don't think about it. You know, you don't think about what could have went the opposite way. But I do know from asking my mom about it, she did tell me, and it kind of, in a weird way, kind of freaked me out because I was like, holy crap, my son had an experience just like mine. But the difference was my mom was in the hospital and I was having a home birth. So I had somebody that wasn't paying attention, wasn't monitoring, but the doctors were paying attention to me. So that's why I wanted to ask you about it, because it's just something that I've wondered about. And something that I kind of have been noticing the more that we keep, especially doing this channel, I keep noticing that a lot of us only know bits and pieces of our stories of where we even came from, but we don't actually know a lot of the details that could make a difference to us in our own decisions later on. And I think that's where a lot of people think of the whole, like, yeah, everybody, we've been having babies forever and everything's fine. But there is a lot of things there's a lot of dangers and stuff that we didn't realize were even a danger. You know what I mean? So it's just something from even my own personal experience. And then when you said that, like, yeah, I got stuck too. I was like, wow, it's kind of scary, because I thought, I was like, oh, it's just me. Apparently me and my son had a similar experience to my mom and stuff, but you know, but I didn't know. And maybe if my mom had known the technical stuff and I looked it up and was like, maybe it would have been different. But there was a reason why my mom kept saying, she's overdue. We need to go in. And the midwife kept fighting with my mom about like, no, it's fine. She's a first time mom. This is typical. They always take a long time to go into labor and active labor and all that stuff. But that's not always a good thing. Like, it's not good to go overdue.
What's also interesting is that, like, my mom said that she had me at 37 weeks. She apparently had all of us at 37 weeks. And I was 8 pounds at 37 weeks, which is kind of a big baby. Like that's a large baby for 37 weeks.
Yeah.
And I didn't put that correlation together either, because it's not something that I would, you know, think about. But, you know, having me, I was her biggest baby. And
37 weeks.
37 weeks at 8 pounds. So yeah, I mean, my oldest brother, I think, was like 5.5 pounds. The other one was like 6 pounds, and I was 8 pounds. And my mom was not a large person at all. She's very, you know, very small. Been like, 100, I think she's probably like 130 pounds when she had me or something, like she was very small. But yeah, so when I think about that, I'm like, well, I guess I didn't know that, or I didn't think about that as much until after I had my baby, that, wow, I was a big baby at supposedly 37 weeks, 8 pounds. That's pretty big. Has a lot to do with it.
It does. That's why I do think, like, I know a lot of people are kind of like, wow, and we have to relive our experiences, and there's a lot of trauma that people I don't even think about normally afterwards, and even if they have their kid that's still alive. But I think the more that we hear each other's experiences, the more that we learn from each other,
Definitely.
of
Yeah.
stuff that we just didn't know. And so I really I'm really glad that you came on to
Thank you for
share
having
with
me.
us, because it means a lot. It really does.